sector and trying to learn more about his experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a question, a very open question, and the idea later is if any of you wants to make a question, that that question can be incorporated too. So for this question, I I would like to know, we would like to know, what lessons do you have for environmental economists that are seeking to have policy influence in that areas?
That's a big question. Uh, um, so I think the number one lesson is to do something that people care about. It seems obvious. Um, I had a young colleague recently come and ask me, he got tenure, he got promoted, um, and he's trying to decide what he wants to do next. And one of his questions was, how do you have policy impact? And I told him, well, you got to do things that people care about. Um, and so in a lot of economics, a lot of fun economics, uh, 99.9, anybody who's not an economist doesn't care. So if you're doing theoretical work on general equilibrium, nobody cares. Um, but, you know, I had a, there was a, there was a professor in our department who was a sociologist, and he talked about architects and bricklayers. And so architects are people who come up with the great ideas, and the bricklayers are people who put them to use. Um, and so I think of myself as a bricklayer with a little bit of architect in me. Um, so I came to economics because I was interested not in theoretical, but because I thought economics had a lot to say about how to do things in the world in a better way. So I've always had a fundamental interest in public policy. Um, and time over the history, philosophy for one. One of the things most good. So, so that, that's, I just thought in terms of public policy things, that was really interesting to me. I also, I had a telephone call, sorry. You couldn't hear it, but I could. Um, I had the good fortune when I was an undergraduate to have as a visiting professor at the University of New Mexico where I got my undergraduate degree, to have one of the world's first and most foremost environmental economists who powerful online. And it just was a revelation. But even then, when I was doing environmental economics, sort of when I started off in environmental economics, the top research topic was valuing uh, that's an important question, but it wasn't a question that why is it that yes, involved in um, what was wrong with that one? Which is about how to design public policies to achieve the ends that you want to achieve. And so that's kind of where I started. So I just became very interested in environmental, and the use of economics as a way to select policies that would get people to do the things that we want them to do. So my topic today was how to design policy or not design policy to get people to do the things we want to do. And uh, I've had a lot of success in that particular area in my academic career. But I think that was because I applied that knowledge and that interest to a topic that was of a lot of interest to policymakers. So if you look at the economics of water quality protection in the field of economics, it's not a big topic. There's a lot of topics that are way more interesting than to economists in general than this one. But this is the one that interested me. So I carved out a niche that was my niche in water, in doing public policy for water quality protection, and it served me very well. But it was also something that was very relevant, and it allowed me to become somebody who is prominent in a particular area that was of people. So I think that was one lesson or dimension of doing it. I think another aspect of my career that I think helped me was that um, I I like to do economic modeling and I like to do theoretical modeling, but I like to incorporate the real world into my models to the extent that I can, which is something I also try to teach my students to do. But so if your if your economics cannot connect with questions like Matthias, um, then you might not be able to convince somebody like Matthias that you have something to say. Or, you might be talking about the wrong thing altogether, and they might laugh at you when you try to talk about whatever you talk about. So I had a very early interest in actually connecting economic models theoretically with conceptual models of environmental processes that work well with economic models. And so I think a dimension of my theoretical research is that it incorporates sort of realistic dimension of, of the environmental problems that I'm looking at. I think that makes it more compelling. And so I've gone to conferences in which people have asked me if I'm a hydrologist. I think I'm no hydrologist, so probably revealed that to you today. But I can talk like a hydrologist. And I can even talk like a biologist sometimes. But I've learned the language of multidisciplinary environmental research, and that makes it so I can collaborate with people, but also have influence with people because if I'm an economist who goes to work with a set of, when you look at who advises government people most about environmental topics, it's not economists. It's lawyers and engineers. Lawyers and engineers are the people who do the most environmental policies. The lawyers, create the regulations, what kind of regulations they do. So if you want to have influence in that, you have to be able to talk at least to the engineers. If you get the engineers on your side, then you can have more lawyers. But I think to have authenticity and to be compelling, you have to speak the language that is the language of the regulator, and that's law, and that is engineering. So I think that was something that I did not learn that. I enjoyed that, and it benefited me and that I could do it. And so that would be a recommendation that I would have too. I think a lesson for influence too. So this is if you're able to have the technical background and skills that you need for the story and novel. The other part there is you have to learn how to step outside of your so Thomas, as you all know, loves a garden. A lot of times we garden, and we try to explain things, and you know, what are you talking about? I was invited to a conference by the Canadian government to talk about environmental instruments, and I was on a panel with two very famous theoretical environmental economists talking about environmental instruments. And they gave their talks, and it was very good economics, but had no impact whatsoever on jobs because they didn't understand it. So they were talking in terms of academic theory that just didn't mean anything with people in the field. So this was a great opportunity for me because I had laughed up. And so I got to, that cleanup. I could clean up after the famous people because I knew how to talk, just from experience, how to explain things. I think that's probably because I had that experience. So those are I guess one thing to in terms of value, I think something that everybody knows is important that they dodge is the goal of uncertainty in the world. And so everybody will talk about air balance and uncertainty, but then once they start actually doing something for policy deciders to decide, and we pretend that what we know, what we think averages are what the averages are, what reality is. And I think that's a mistake. So the one part that needs to be bad policy, but the other part is it deprives people of information, and it deprives the person of novelty. So if you want to be novel as a researcher, then embrace something that is really important that people kind of avoid. Uncertainty is one of those things. And so that's, I think, one of the things that, I think two things that distinguish what I do are I embrace uncertainty. Any article you look at, almost any article you look at from economic journal will have a whole bunch of math stats, because I like to use it for my purposes. And I can come up with policy recommendations for how to deal with uncertainty.
Thank you. That was amazing. Yeah, each one of the points was very relevant. And I don't know if anyone of you want to make a question in the line that we are discussing.
Thank you, Dr. James. In the situation that you have to go to the farmers, I have worked with farmers or agricultural producers. As you say, one of the things that you have to help them or for making all these environmental practices more usable is to go for the economic approach. But so what will be the best variable that you need to measure or tackle in order to make a really good economical environmental plan for that agriculture from your experience? One of the things like, yeah, if we want to make this project work, we need to measure, I don't know, carbon, we have to measure nitrogen, we have to know I don't know the practicals. But what will be the first variable that you think about it when you tackle some agriculture farmer environmental practice?
My first question is who am I talking to, and what do they care about? And so if I'm talking to a farmer, what are the variables that matter most to them? And that's going to depend on whether it's a big farmer or a small farmer. But for most farmers, um, the bottom line matters a lot. Is it profitable? Is it not profitable? What does it mean? Does it expose me to more risk, less risk, things of that nature? Um, Another one, though, when you talk to farmers, is time. Because the most valuable commodity a farmer has is time. So a lot of people will forget, oh, this is profitable for you. And you think, well, that's going to cost me hours to do that. So I think that, the words that you choose focus on are the objectives or variables depend on who you're talking to. And those vary, and I think you have to um, vary that by that. In the fall, I was at a legislative hearing by the states that surround the West Bay on how do we get, the legislators want to go, how do we get farmers to do what we want them to do in the Hannah? A very high-level corporate farm with a banker who does ag finance, and they had a fellow who worked for a farm association, and then they had me. They didn't have a regular farmer. So, like this, they would ask one of us a question about what matters to you. And so the corporate farmer it's the bottom line. For the farm business guy, was a farm, I can't remember what the farm that guy said. I can't remember what the other one said, but none of them thought about who the true farm population was. So where I live, you have a series of farms between very large corporate farms and a whole bunch of small farms where the husband and the wife both go to work off the farm. And so for them, time is the number one thing. And so, so you got to figure out, for this corporate guy, go and talk to them directly because they know the technology, they can hire consultants to help them with conservation plans, and they spend a lot of money on farm consultants. But the husband and the wife, they can't hire consultants. So hopefully be able to go to an extension meeting so they can teach them things. So I think it matters a lot to who you're talking about. And when you're looking at environmental issues, it'll vary a lot with farm population. So you have farm communities that are very environmentally oriented. So organic gardening, organic farming people think of themselves as very environmentally oriented. There's other people who think they're not. Because it's the tillage issue you raised earlier. Organic farming is very tillage intensive. It can be bad for the environment. So it's good there. So some people fall into this. I think when you're dealing with public policymakers, they too will vary in what their interests are. So the ag agencies have some interests, farm profitability primarily. Environmental agencies will have others, but even within them, some people are talking about nitrogen, some people are talking about modeling. So it's a multifaceted thing.
I think we can have one more question. If any of you want to ask something?
Thank you. I'm sorry, my English is maybe not that good. Something that is important for the agriculture sector is market first. So he said he's completely right. First, you need to have how may I say that, a perspective about what the agriculture wants. And then you make sure about the market. So if you got the market and you got, how may I say that, to add value to every single organic thing you are producing, and you got the market. So the agriculture sector will say yes. But first, we must work in a, how may I say that, country master plan. So in that way, everything is going to work together as the mycelium, So is maybe what I think is something we here in Costa Rica we should take advantage of. Why? Because the government, for us, through the agriculture sector, we don't have, let's say, money from the government, like some other countries. They got money from their governments, right? So something we must take advantage of is that to work together as a unique organism. That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else wants to add something?
Hello. Okay. So I was thinking about the policy incidents part, uh, and sometimes I have talked to policymakers, and I have had bad news for them, and it's very difficult to convince them, right? And I mean, sometimes they don't want to be convinced too, right? So what can we do if you're in the place that you have bad news for them and some the policy doesn't really work as they thought? Any thoughts about that?
Very valuable service by telling them that things that'll work. They have a bunch of other people who are telling them things are going to work. So they hear messages from lots of different people, and um, those who benefit from the policy will say, "Oh, this is good." Um, and I think that it's uh, bad news. Bad news is the job of an economist, actually. Um, to deliver bad news is, in that way, because people get grand ideas and they don't think the ideas through. They don't do the research to back them up. It sounds wonderful. They have a bunch of interest groups who are going to benefit from that. So then it just becomes an assumption that this is going to work. And when you bring bad news, it's cognitive dissonance. They don't want to hear that. So you have to continue to deliver the bad news, and then hopefully there's learning that goes on, and nothing is catastrophic in terms of the assessment. Um, we were talking at the coffee break about electric vehicles. Well, there's a whole industry that are built around electrification of transportation. They're telling the politicians how great it's going to be on this way and this way and this way. The politicians are happy to say, "Oh yeah, well, I'll spend money this way." And when you say, "Well, this isn't working out quite the way you think," they don't want to hear that. And it happens in so many different domains that there's path dependence in policy. And you get started down and start to get into path that means somebody's wrong. Um, so I think just have to hope that and this is
Thank you, Jim, for this exchange. I think it's very nice to have a conversation like this. Maybe we can implement this kind of things more often. And I want to thank everyone now.
It has been an honor to share this morning. We hope that the experiences and knowledge shared during this activity will be a source of inspiration for each of us in our daily efforts to improve the environment. Now we will hear the closing words from Dr. Janira Firinash, Interim Director of the School of Economics at the UCR.
Thank you. First, thank you, Dr. Shirley, for your excellent conference. and conversatory. Thank you for the Professor Saborio Rodriguez for make this real. And I have remarked few ideas around the conversation today. First, we have a real problem in Costa Rica with the water quality. It's, the recent event is the little, what do you say? It's only the first problem in this moment. So we need to take different way to research about the water quality in Costa Rica. The water quality is a research we needed in multidisciplinary groups. I think the professor have so many ideas is focused, but I think two ideas. First, return to the social investment and cost efficiency. This is real. The second idea, focus. We need focus in performance oriented, focus in passive targeting, and focus in single instrument objective. I think that's it. Focus for this problem, and Professor Robalino say our policymaker is a real difficult to convince them this is the problem, but I need to work together in this problem. So, Professor, again, thank you very much. We enjoy your presentation. For all in the auditorium and the streaming transmission, thank you very much for staying here and have a nice day and enjoy the weekend in Costa Rica, Professor. Thank you very much.
Well, we conclude this event expressing our gratitude to Dr. Shortle, of course, for sharing his knowledge, and with our audience, and to all us, to all you for your presence here today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.